thank all of you for being here today and for helping to raise the profile of human rights violations in Burma. The work that you do both inform and inspire the work of our commission. As most of you know, USCIRF is an independent, bipartisan U.S. government advisory body created by the 1998 International Religious Freedom Act, or IRFA. Our mandate is to monitor religious freedom abroad using international standards and to make policy recommendations to the White House, the Department of State, and the Congress. USCIRF has monitored conditions in Burma since 2000, consistently recommending its designation as a country of particular concern, or CPC, for engaging in systematic, ongoing, and egregious violations of religious freedom. Over the past 20 years, we have highlighted how the Burmese military and now the State Administration Council, or SAC, have targeted ethnic and religious minorities, including Christians. The SAC violently targets religious communities to maintain its grip on power and to achieve a Buddhist nationalist vision for Burma. Unfortunately, the situation for Christians in Burma only continues to deteriorate. I would like to note a few developments that USCIRF has been particularly concerned about in recent months. Since the 2021 coup, the military has attacked over 100 religious sites, including Christian churches and Buddhist monasteries in Chin State alone. These attacks come mostly from airstrikes and have escalated in recent months. Just this month, airstrikes and attacks on the ground have displaced over 10,000 people in Chin State. This is in addition to the hundreds of millions already displaced. This is in addition to hundreds of millions already displaced by SAC and the Burmese military. The Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees has counted some 2.3 million internally displaced people in Burma and 1.35 million refugees and asylum seekers in the wider region beyond Burma. The SAC has not only created instability within Burma, but ruined the lives of millions of Burmese, and ruined the lives of millions of Burmese, but its violence has also spread instability and economic strain throughout the region. I was very glad to hear about the Burmese military. I was very alarmed to hear about the Burmese military's attacks against Kaya State Catholic community that escalated this past fall. Since November 27th, the military has occupied Christ the King Cathedral at least 3 times, reportedly trashing the cathedral, mining its grounds, and desecrating its holy items like the unconsecrated Eucharist. We heard reports that just a few weeks ago, the military attacked the Baptist community of Tamu Township, destroying at least 2 churches, St. Peter Baptist Church and New Eden Baptist Church. These are just a few examples of the long list of attacks perpetrated by SAC against houses of worship. On top of these attacks, USCIRF remains concerned for those who have been detained or disappeared. These include the Kachin Baptist pastor Pakalam Sampson, Pastor Sampson, whose detention began in December of 2022, is highlighted in USCIRF's Victims List database. It is evident that the SAC seeks to detain, disappear, or destroy those they cannot control. I want to note that USCIRF has consistently called out the atrocities and genocide that the Burmese military has committed against the predominantly Muslim Rohingya. And I was very happy to meet one of the key representatives from the Rohingya community just a few minutes ago, and I think one of the first Rohingya and first Muslims to be a part of the government in Burma, as I understand it. So it's very good to meet you, sir. But the military has committed these atrocities against the Muslim Rohingya. Since the coup nearly 2 years ago, it has become clear that the failure of the international community to fully address the Rohingya crisis that has enabled the Burmese military to employ similar tactics against Christian communities. We therefore see the plight of religious minorities, whether Christians or Muslims, or any other ethnic and religious community in Burma, as inextricably linked. In USCIRF's 2023 annual report chapter on Burma, we urge Congress and the Biden administration to fully implement the Burma Unified Through Rigorous Military Accountability Act of 2022, also known as the Burma Act, to better promote religious freedom in a federal and democratic Burma. The Burma Act authorizes the United States to engage the pro-democracy Burmese opposition, including the National Unity Government and ethnic armed organizations. I'm also pleased to meet members of from the National Unity Government this morning as well. Interlocutors and members of various Burmese communities have repeatedly expressed to USCIRF their desire for a stable Burma that fully realizes its international obligations to freedom of religion or belief, among other commitments. The United States has continued to sanction key perpetrators of human rights violations in Burma. This has included sanctions against the Myanmar oil and gas enterprise, a major revenue source for the SAC, as well as various sources of jet fuel supplies. And as I mentioned before, the military uses this fuel to carry out airstrikes against Christians, their houses of worship, and villages and towns of ethnic and religious minorities. These sanctions must continue to be implemented, and the United States must strengthen its engagement with the international community to ensure that these actions are coordinated with other partners in the region. Thank you again to the organizers for this opportunity to speak today. I urge you all to continue the important work of raising these issues. We all hope to see real and lasting change in Burma that will allow the people to live in peace and to fully realize their right to worship as they see fit. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Beatty. And now I'd like to invite Bishop Ziden, if you would come and make a few remarks. And at this point, I'd also like to recognize Bishop Mark Sykes, who is with us. He is also with Catholic Bishop from El Paso, Texas, in our Committee on Migration and Refugee Services. So Bishop Ziden is our new chair for the Committee on International Justice and Peace. He is a Maronite bishop from the Eparchy for Our Lady of Lebanon and covering the western half of the United States. So he travels a lot, and we're delighted that you could spend time with us here today.
Thanks, Jenny. I'm pleased to be with you here today for this gathering on Myanmar. As chairman of the Committee on International Justice and Peace of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, we are concerned about the many global conflicts. The Catholic Church, with over 1 billion members around the world, looks for ways to add its voice toward resolving these conflicts, since in many countries, the Catholic Church can play a significant role in advocating for peace and reconciliation, even if the Catholic population is rather small. My committee has been aware of the situation in Burma over the years. We have been concerned about attacks on places of worship. We have learned from international organizations such as the United Nations that the conflict in Myanmar, including food insecurity, is that many children are going hungry, unfortunately. In addition, the conflict is devastating the economy and its health and education systems, as many people are displaced from the fighting. As is the case with many other countries where there are conflicts, my committee has been advocating with the U.S. government for humanitarian assistance to go to the most in need and the most vulnerable in Myanmar, regardless of their religious affiliation. They don't have to be Catholics or Muslims or anybody who's in need. Pope Francis, who's been always worried and concerned about people living in the peripheries, who visited Myanmar in 2017, has frequently affirmed his closeness to the people. In 2023, he said, "I'm close to the helpless civilian population, subject to severe trials in many cities. Please God, that this conflict will soon come to an end, opening a new period of forgiveness, love, and peace. Let us pray together for Our Lady of Myanmar," he said. In this time of instability, I join with His Holiness Pope Francis in his call to pray for the people of Myanmar and for peaceful resolution to the conflict there. May we all join with him in this prayer and aspiration and do whatever we can. God bless you and thank you.
Thank you very much, Bishop Zaden, for sharing your thoughts and hopes for peace in Myanmar. At this point, I'd like to invite Aung Chi Munt, Chairman of the CRPH, and make some remarks.
Good morning. Firstly, I would like to introduce very briefly about the CRPH. The CRPH means committee representing the Hospital. Means that is 2021 military power 2. That is the date of the parliamentary starting date. When we are saying in the compound, we are ready to attend to the parliament. But after the coup, we have no right to the parliament. Therefore, we set up 83% of the parliamentary members. According to the mandate, we set up as CRPH. And now we are duty as a representative of the Burmese people. CRPH is now studying for as a parliament. Now, the first February is a 3-year anniversary of their power cube. That date we have to held the 6th parliamentary session on the first February. This is a briefly about the CRPH. And now I would like to say the thank you to the CAM invited to speak today. And that is not counted in congressman. I think also there is a whole host about the host of the prison. In recent months, the United States took the important actions of sanctioning Myanmar oil gas, MOGE, and the Honda top source of funding. We can draw a direct line from the Honda revenues from MOGE to the airstrike and military operations that destroyed Christian churches. Though this event focused on the atrocities against Christians, CRPH condemns the Honda's destruction of any place of worship in Burma and the imprisonment of religious leaders. Since the military coup of February 1, 2021, the military junta has increasingly targeted religious communities, taking the Christians as one of the targets, some as the military did to the Muslims during 2017 Rohingya crisis. The only solution for all Burma different ethnic and religious groups is for us to establish a federal democratic union. In order to do that, we need to topple the military regime. The US Congress has already shown great support to our cause by passing the Burma Act. And we are grateful for this, but we need further efforts by the Congress to hold the junta accountable. A resolution condemning the violence, calling for its end, and for the release of all persons, both religious leaders such as Reverend Dauda Kalam Samsa, and political leaders such as State Councillor Dawan San Suu Kyi and President women and others. Now, in our country, the people of the country, daily life is a very, very tragic. We need to overcome, but we are trying by ourselves in our country, and we need the support and aid of the international citizens. And I'm very happy and very thank you for the inviting and getting this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. At this point, I'd like to invite the members of the first panel to come up to the stage. Reverend Stoops, Tim Siemens, Reverend Tim Siemens, Rebecca Long, Reverend Sang She, and Reverend Ale. You would all come up and take seats on this side, so you will be part of the Zoom link. And Esther will be interpreting for Rebecca Long. So maybe you have to come one more down. So where's Esther? I think we will start with sort of the order on here. So, Reverend Robin Stoops, if you'd like to start up on this particular panel is about rising persecution of Christians. So we invite all of you to give your testimony and your insights as to the situation in Burma. And please press the button.
Thank you for the opportunity to make a statement. I certainly don't have a testimony because it's not my story, it's their story, but I do want to make a few remarks. Obviously today we address a tragic chapter in Burma's recent history, and we've already heard about the coup in 2020. And as you're aware, the people of Burma witnessed destruction of their democratic progress as military seized control, plunged the nation into political chaos and unrest, and also had an impact, obviously, on the lives of thousands of innocent civilians. There continues to be devastating consequences in every aspect of life, including the disruption of essential healthcare services, the loss of an educational system, and certainly religious freedom. The instability resulting from the coup made it challenging for all providers to operate effectively. Hospitals struggled to obtain medical supplies, schools and churches were destroyed, and basic survival has become a priority. The coup led to the displacement of communities, creating a surge in IDPs, internally displaced people, especially vulnerable groups, and found them in precarious situations where they had to escape to jungles. The mental health of the Burmese people also suffered. Constant fear of violence, arrest, uncertain future took a toll on the psychological well-being of the civilians in Burma. Trauma experienced by those directly affected, coupled with a pervasive atmosphere of fear, has a supreme impact. The military's crackdown on protests worsened the crisis. The use of force led to injuries and arrest and death. Suppression of voices demanding democracy not only violated human rights, but left a lasting impact on the physical and mental and spiritual persons of those affected. In response, the United States government and the international community needs to mobilize humanitarian aid to provide medical supplies, support displaced populations, and restore educational services. As we reflect on the coup, remembering the faces of the people that we read about in the stories is one of those things we need to do, and realizing too that the ability to find solace and hope through their faith, whatever that might be, is something that is severely lacking. So as the churches are destroyed, it's more than just destroying a building, it's destroying a place where people can gather to gain courage and strength from one another, and certainly from the God that they serve. So again, we continue to ask that the government and the international community would intervene, and then certainly the places of faith would pray and come alongside to continue to give hope to these beloved people. Thank you.
Thank you. That was Reverend Dr. Robin Stoops, who's Associate General Secretary of the American Baptist Churches for the Saints. Now we invite Reverend Tim Siemens to speak. He is the board chairman of the Chin Association of Maryland, and he had the opportunity to visit Missourium and look at Chin refugees last March. And he plans to go again to Missourium in February. And we're almost on the verge of February, so we wish you have a good trip.
Thank you.
Reverend Siemens.
Well, thank you to Representative Smith and to all the groups who are co-hosting with us today. As board chairman of CAM, I have a long-standing connection with the Burma's Chin Christians. As you mentioned, I had the opportunity actually also to travel to the Chin state before the coup, and then to Mizoram state in India in March of 2023. In October of 2023, CAM sent a team of 5 researchers to Mizoram to produce a report on the public health situation of the 40,000 Chin refugees there. CAM is proud to release this public health report today, as well as our 2023 annual report on religious persecution of Christians in Burma. Christianity Today counted 100+ religious buildings destroyed or forced to close. By CAM's estimate, there are now 220. Our main request for Congress today is to pass the Senate's version of the appropriations for Burma, which adds up to $167 million for humanitarian aid to civilians and non-lethal assistance for the resistance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reverend Siemens. We appreciate your leadership of the Chin Association of Maryland. At this point, I'd like to invite Rebecca Ma and her daughter to. Rebecca is the sister of someone who is imprisoned in Myanmar. So we invite Rebecca and her daughter to talk about the situation there. Turn on the microphone.
I'm thankful to have the chance to speak in front of you guys today.
Come a little closer to the microphone.
Thank you everyone who are here to listen to our stories. I am Oregano. I have 2 children. I'm living in Dallas with my family, and I have my daughter with me today. Her name is Ruth. If you could please stand up from where you are. She's right there. My sister is Miss Yet Moisung, who used to serve as a pastor at Bethel Shin Baptist Church and another church in Hakka, and she also teach preschool, but due to the family situation, she couldn't do it anymore, so she had 2 children who are age of 11 and 13. And the reason why she could no longer work was due to her health. She had diabetes, she also had cancer, pre-cancer for her womb. And so the doctors told her to go to Yangon. And so she had to leave her 2 children to go to the hospital in Yangon. And on her way there, at the 266 LIB Burmese soldier arrested her there at the We didn't understand or know why she was arrested, but after 2 weeks they found out that she was arrested because they accused her of helping and providing funds to the Chinland Defensive Force. And so none of our families or relatives don't have a word, so they automatically bring her into the military court. They arrested her on May 22nd of 2023, and on September 29th of 2023, my sister was sentenced to life imprisonment by a military court in Hakka. Because our families or relatives don't have a word and they can't do anything about this. So, and as we are speaking right now, a lot of our comrades, the Chinland Defensive Force, they are suffering and the blood are shedding. So I ask you guys to help me and our country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rebecca, for your somewhat very sad story about your sister, and we will certainly pray for her and for her children who are without their mother, as we pray for peace in Burma. So our next speaker will be Reverend San She, who is pastor of the Chin Christian Church in Indianapolis, Indiana. So,
good afternoon, everyone. My name is San She, pastor from Chin Christian Church in Indianapolis. I'm very thankful to God for making this event possible, and to the Congressman Smith and Zoltan Moon for organizing it. I've been serving the Lord as a pastor of this congregation for 5 years. Before that, I served as pastor in Chin Christian Fellowship, the largest Chin refugee community church in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, from 2013 to 2015, consecutive 3 years. Over 80% of Chin refugees resettled in the United States came through Malaysia. On March 15, 1889, Reverend Arthur Carson and Laura Carson, the first Baptist missionaries from the United States to the Chin Hills, arrived in Hakka, my native town. They established the church, the Baptist church, Hakka Baptist Church, where I began serving as pastor in 1995. Later, Reverend Dr. Robert G. Johnson, the last missionary to the Chin people, built the church using stone. In the Hakka dialect, we call it Lung Yak In, and there's stone church. And it was the largest church in Hakka. In 1966, the Burmese military deported Reverend Dr. R.G. Johnson and family to the United States. They nationalized all Christian institutions established by the missionaries, such as schools and hospitals. After the coup in 1962, there has been no freedom of religion for minority religions in Burma since that time. The situation against Christians only worsened since the coup in 2021. In 2022, during the burning of Tantlang Tram, the military destroyed the Johnson Memorial Baptist Church, Tantlang, built in Dr. Johnson's memory. In 2023, our community in Hakka continued to suffer. On May 22, Deb Moisung, just mentioned by her sister, a former pastor at the church in Hakka, was arrested on suspicion of helping the resistance. In September, she was sentenced to life imprisonment without due process. Rebecca Moore, her older sister, is here, is a member of my church in Indianapolis. On August 14, the Burmese military launched an attack on the Hakka Baptist Church compound, where I first served the Lord as pastor, as I've mentioned. Soldiers from Light Infantry Battalion 266 fired an RPG at the compound, which contains 13 homes for clergy. The home of the senior pastor was damaged. The Tamado must help accountable for these crimes. And please help us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Reverend Sanchez. Now we will have Reverend Ale, General Secretary of the Chin Baptist Churches USA, to speak.
I'm Ale, a pastor of the Chin Baptist Church and the General Secretary of the Chin Baptist Churches USA. I would like to talk about Reverend Dr. Kalam Samson, former President and General Secretary of the Chin Baptist Convention. Reverend Dr. Samson is a leader for religious freedom and minority rights in Burma, who met with the former President Donald Trump and Barack Obama. On December 8, 2022, the Tamado arrested Reverend Dr. Kalam Samson at the Mandalay International Airport on his way for medical treatment in Thailand. On April 7, 2023, the Mijina Prison Court in Kachin State sentenced Reverend Dr. Kalam Samson to 6 years in prison on false charges of unlawful association, incitement, and terrorism. In prison, Reverend Dr. Kalan Samson's health condition continued to deteriorate. The lawyer wrote an appeal letter to Michina Court, but the appeal letter for Reverend Dr. Kalan Samson was rejected. The appeal letter for Reverend Dr. Kalan Samson was sent to Capital Court in Naypyidaw yesterday. As an ethnic and religious minority, the Kachin people face persecution for many years. There are 100,000 internal displaced people in Kachin State and Shan State. Kachin people are no stranger to atrocity. Christians are being treated by the brutal Burmese military in Burma. Christians are systematically oppressed by the Burmese military. Now there are also regular military attacks on civilians. On October 9, 2023, military bombed the Moonlight camp for displaced people, killing 29 civilians and injuring 60. The death toll includes 11 children. Recently, 725 houses were damaged in 12 towns in Shan states. According to KBC HDD report, 203 civilians were killed and 240 civilians got injured in Shan states. We need accountability for these crimes, and we need Congress and the administrations to help us. Please pass the Senate budget for $167 million to help the people of Burma. Thank you.
So thank you so much for this panel about the situation of persecution for Christians in Burma, and we will continue to pray that somehow leadership, both here in terms of providing aid and leadership in Myanmar in terms of recognizing the perverse situation they have subjected their own people to. That will be reversed. So, thank you again. And now I would like to invite the second panel to talk about the humanitarian fallout for the situation in Myanmar. So this particular panel will focus on the humanitarian fallout to what has been going on in Myanmar for the last 3 years. We're particularly delighted that we have a panel that includes a number of young people who had the opportunity to go to Mizoram to look at the situation for Chin refugees in that state. For those of you that may not be aware, Mizoram abuts the western part of Myanmar, and there has been a massive migration of Chin across the border, and the Chin population in Mizoram has been very welcoming, but on the other hand, they're sort of overwhelmed with the number of people that have come. So we're going to start off with Reverend Dr. Roy Medley, who is the convener of the Burma Advocacy Group and General Secretary Emeritus of the American Baptist Churches USA. Dr. Medley, if you'd like to start.
Yes, thank you so much. The world is aware of the persecution and suffering of the Rohingya, but few hear of the suffering and oppression of the Christian community in Burma. Thank you for this opportunity to speak on their behalf. Not that we wish to diminish the light shown on the genocide against the Rohingya, but that its beam might be broadened to illuminate the long suffering of Christians in Burma as well. Over the past 40 years, I've traveled to Burma many times, meeting with the people, military leaders, armed ethnic groups, political leaders such as Daw Aung San Suu Kyi, and now with CRPH and with NUG leaders as well. Beginning with the 1960 coup, the Sioux coup, led by General Ne Win, the Christian ethnic population has been oppressed by regime after regime, guided by the political philosophy that to be a citizen of Burma is to be a Buddhist, to be a part of the ruling Bamar ethnicity, and to speak Burmese. Christians, especially the Christian ethnics, who would surrender neither their faith, nor their culture, nor their language, were subjected to the brutal assault of the military, determined to drive them out or to eradicate them. I have sat and mourned with families whose wives, mothers, daughters, sisters were raped and killed by the Tatmadaw, because rape is promoted as a method of terror. Rape especially, where the victims were assaulted within our churches, so that the women were defiled and the holiness of our sanctuaries desecrated. As the Tatmadaw would overwhelm villages, driving away the people, they would leave the land sabotaged with landmines, so the people were forced into exile. We have visited husbands, fathers, and sons in hospitals who dared to return and suffered loss of arms, legs, and eyes, having stepped on a landmine. Countless others perished. Under the current murderous regime, the oppression has increased dramatically against the Christian ethnic population, with indiscriminate bombing and strafing of civilian targets, targeted destruction of the Christian churches and related institutions, burning of entire towns and villages, such as Tok Long, in predominantly Christian areas, the arrest of our Christian leaders, as you have heard. As a result, there is a new wave of predominantly Christian internally displaced persons and refugees. In October, I crossed over from Thailand into Burma and visited IDPs. Their existence is precarious as they hide in the jungle with impure water to drink, little food to eat, children malnourished and ill with no medical care, constantly shadowed by the fear of being discovered by the Tatmadaw and murdered. The same trip took me to Malaysia and the border camps in Thailand, where thousands have fled. They live in a state of limbo. Imagine trying to live while being forbidden to work. Your children excluded from the educational system, always subject to attack and deportation, always an alien with no path to citizenship or a future. The human costs are great. Their suffering has been compounded by the immigration policies conceived, crafted, and enacted here in our capital by the previous administration, and those senators and representatives aligned with it in spirit are in silence. As the flame of the lady in the harbor was quenched, doors of entry closed and locked, and the character of those seeking refuge defamed as rapists, murderers, and polluters of our national blood. The costs are real. Suicides increased in Malaysia among the refugees, as did drug addiction among the youth in the border camps. Without a vision of hope, people perish. In these past 4 years, we have seen aid and support legislated and budgeted, but not sent, as we heard from the president of the NUG and as we have heard from the others in Thailand and in Malaysia. Now is the time for strong action on behalf of a people suffering because of their faith, a people struggling for justice, freedom, and democracy. Let us not fail them again. Let us pass the Senate Appropriations Act. And I invite you present today to join with us as we sponsor a prayer vigil at Calvary Baptist Church this Saturday at 11 o'clock with a protest to follow afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Medley. At this point, let me invite the youth who went to Mizoram State to talk about their experience and talk about some of the public health findings that they have had. So can I invite John Indegard, who is the project and research coordinator, Esther Parr, a research intern at Isher, who's another research intern, and Tani Sui, who is a research volunteer, and Henna Parr, also another research volunteer, to speak. So John, I will let you organize who speaks when.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for coming today. My name is John Indregard with CAM, and thank you Dr. Medley for giving us an update on what's happening on the eastern border of Burma. And I'd like to thank all of our co-hosts for their support. And I invite you to follow along with the PowerPoint presentation, or if you have a copy of our report, to read along. Next slide, please. So last October and November, our CAM research team traveled to Mizoram State, India, which is directly across the border from Chin State, Burma. Mizoram is currently hosting tens of thousands of refugees from Burma, almost all Chin. The number is most commonly cited as 40,000, but there are lower and higher estimates. We visited the 5 districts with the most refugees: Aizawl, Champhai, Longlai, Longklai, and Saipan. Since not much large-scale data collection has been done in Mizoram, we conducted key informant interviews, meeting with doctors, refugee leaders, and local officials across the state. We visited 13 refugee camps and interviewed leaders from about a dozen more. Next, please. Before we begin talking about our report, I want to briefly talk about the refugee situation in Mizoram. India is not a signatory to the 1951 Refugee Convention or its 1967 Protocol, and they lack a national refugee policy. UNHCR, the UN's refugee agency, has an office in Delhi, but no access to Mizoram, meaning they cannot register with On the other hand, Mizoram State itself has taken a strong pro-refugee stance since the 1992. Mizos and Chin share ethnic heritage and many aspects of their culture, so it is common to hear Mizos say we welcome our Chin brothers and sisters. Mizoram allows refugees to access its hospitals and schools, which has kept the situation from total collapse. However, this does not mean refugees have all their needs met, and we are talking about 40,000 plus refugees and displaced people in a small state of only 1 million. Mizoram state government and civil society, particularly the Central Young Mizo Association, led a great humanitarian effort in the first year of the crisis. They met about half of the needs in the second year, and by 2023 are no longer able to sustain the systemic humanitarian aid. This responsibility has been fulfilled through the generosity of ad hoc efforts from local Mizos and the fundraising efforts of the Chin diaspora in the West. Next, please. I'd like to go through some of the key findings of our public health report now. First, the fact that the UN and most international NGOs cannot access Mizoram makes it difficult to respond and scale. India's Foreign Contributions Regulation Act complicates funding. It requires NGOs to register with the Indian government and use official bank accounts. A lot of diaspora help comes instead to personal bank accounts of relatives, which have a far lower international transfer limit. The circumstances of individual Chin refugees depend on connections in the diaspora. Some dialect groups receive proportionally less assistance than others because they simply do not have as many contacts in the diaspora. 4, Chin refugees often survive at a bare subsistence level, funded by donations, and in some cases their own day labor, and this can be rice donations or maybe some small-scale gardening at camps when that's possible. In many areas, there's no dedicated refugee healthcare system. Instead, we have mobile clinics or teams of volunteer medical professionals visiting camps maybe once a year. And there are some border clinics at the town of Zocotar. Chin refugees can access Mizoram's hospitals, but in practice they face many financial, logistical, language, and knowledge barriers, which we will discuss further in this presentation. Most commonly cited health concerns: malnutrition, waterborne illnesses from lack of clean water, limited vaccine availability, and a nearly complete lack of mental health and psychosocial support services. We also found that nearly 3 years on, some volunteer organizations are forced to scale down operations due to a lack of funds, which has created the potential for this situation to worsen. Finally, the Chin diaspora, we found, has not been coordinating its efforts to send funds and aid to the refugees because of its decentralized nature, just family members or community groups, churches supporting people they know in the state. And I'd like to pass it on to my colleagues to talk about the District of Aizawl. Next slide, please.
During my time in Mizoram, India, I had the opportunity to visit Aizawl district, which has approximately 10,000 Chin refugees. So Aizawl is the state capital and has one of the best health infrastructure and hospitals in best specialties in the state. There are about 12 hospitals in the city, plus 3 CDM clinics available for refugees. Currently, a lot of refugees from across the states are traveling to Aizawl for more severe cases. Although some of the refugees are able to rent homes in the state, in the city, a lot of them are still living in camps such as Burial and Laiton camp, and they are living in very devastating conditions. So Lung Lake district has approximately 2,100 Chin refugees. It is a central district and urban hub for the state's south. It is also home to the Taizawl camp, which is one of the largest refugee camps in the state, and it has approximately over 800 refugees. In the camp, there is a small clinic that has one nurse, but it has very limited resources and medications for the refugees. There is Lung Civil Hospital, which is approximately 40-minute drive, and it costs 1,500 Indian rupees. For those that have more severe health conditions, they go to Lung Civil Hospital, but because of the financial constraint, a lot of them struggle to pay. Passing the mic on to my colleague, Abhishek. I also had the chance to able to travel to the Changhai district, and it is housing a significant population of refugees, estimating at 10,250 individuals. This area, particularly near the Zocotar border crossing, has seen the highest concentration of refugees, outnumbering the local. Consequently, because of this, refugees has difficulty obtaining a job. And also, some of the refugee camps in these regions include Zote Camp, Betul Camp, and Sikan Camp. So to provide essential healthcare services to the refugees, there are 3 free clinics, namely Mercy and Lailun Clinic, operated at Zocotar. And for refugees requiring more advanced medical care, they are referred to the civil hospital in Jampai, which is approximately about 40 minutes to an hour drive. And just as my previous colleague shared, because of the transportation and cost of transportation, a lot of refugees is struggling to seek advanced healthcare. And passing on to my colleague, Teddy.
Thank you, Abhishek. So me and Esther has a chance to visit Longkai and Siaha, and for Longkai district, there are about 5,950 refugees, and as of right now, it is particularly remote and underdeveloped, and 2/3 of the subdivision are currently overseen by the Lai Autonomous District Council. Ethnic minority group living here share languages with Lai-speaking refugees. Conversely, Mara and Mathu, refugee from Chin State, tend to live in camp. Next slide, please. For Siha district, there are about 8,500 refugees. As the headquarters for Mara Autonomous District Council, more Mara refugees come here. The legal and economic situation for refugees in Siha is particularly difficult. As of right now, when new baby are born, they are not given birth certificate. Refugees are not given a refugee card to work, and they do not have a permission from the local authority to work there. Because of those reasons, refugees sometimes are forced to return to the unsafe condition in Chin State. Now I'm gonna pass the mic to Esther, and she's gonna talk more about that.
Thank you, Tenny. And just as my colleague has mentioned, we were there to conduct a key interview for public health gaps, and we were able to find many things that include sanitation, nutrition, vaccination, transportation, mental health, and I would like to give a brief information about our finding. So in Mizoram, there is a limited water resources for clean water, and at refugee camp, they have these Syntex plastic barrel, and some of them can't even afford that, so they have to use their own bucket, which are not sanitized. And they get free water about once every week or once every 2 weeks, depending on which part they are located. And they had to, because they don't have enough water, they have to purchase water bottles, or if they can't purchase them, they have to go to the nearby rivers or lake to go take shower, to do laundry. And for some people that are living inside the city, because they are far from the lake, they have to reuse their water. So for example, they will reuse the water for their laundry, and they will save that for the toilet, flushing toilet. And all of these cause health complications such as diarrhea, ringworm, skin irritation, rash and infections, and these lack of clean water can even lead to kidney problems. And in some area, the living space is so tiny, but it is overpopulated, so it is easy to get communicable infection disease, and malaria is like one of the most problem that they're having in refugee camp as of right now. And if we move to nutrition side, because like my colleague had mentioned, some of the refugees are not allowed to work. And at camps, or the people that are living in the city, they can't even farm, they don't have the space for it, so their diet mainly consists of potato, rice, lentils, and sometimes, if they can purchase it, meat, so that's like barley, and sometimes vegetables, so that majority of them are malnourished, but they are not aware of that because they are basically focusing on living and surviving. And one of the other conditions that they were having is vaccination problem. Vaccination is just distributed is on the basis of first come first serve, and because India government didn't recognize the Chin refugee as a legal refugee there, he only give enough vaccination for the Mizo populations. But however, if the Chin refugee are admitted to hospital, they still get the vaccinations, but the Mizo populations are prioritized. So basically, they're getting the leftover. And for the people that are living in camps, they can't travel to the hospital, in the city hospital, so they are basically there without having any type of vaccination, such as the COVID-19. And the other thing that we have found is transportation problems. For the southern part of Mizoram, in order to go to Aizawl, it took them about 7 to 8 hours. And the Chin refugee, they only go to the hospital in emergency cases. So imagine you are in an emergency conditions, and you have to wait for 8 hours to get to a hospital. It is very costly to go to hospital. It costs about, just the ride costs about 1,000 rupee per person. They call it sumo. It's like a city bus, and it's not very comfy, so it's very hard for people that are sick. And mental health is also a big problem. A lot of people go to the hospital with stomachache, headache, or dizziness, and when the doctor have conversation with these patients, they realize that these are not the actual, they are just like a symptoms of their mental health. And in some cases, they would give them a placebo medications that don't do anything to their body, but just to help them mentally. And people would come back to the hospital after like 3 or 4 weeks, and they'll be like, "Oh, I feel so much better. The medication really helped." And because mental health is also stigmatized in the Chin population, nobody really wants to talk about it, and children are scared of loud noises, and there are a lot of the youth who are in the city who are fighting with the military. They would come to the hospital with broken limb, broken leg, and a lot of them have part of their body part missing, and it's just after they recover, it's just really, their morale is really down. And mobile clinics and hospitals, mobile clinics is provided by a lot of NGO workers, but because of the how far they are from the city and because of the road conditions, most of these mobile clinics are only able to get to each camp once or twice a year, and due to that lack of clinic, people are not aware of their diseases, and people don't really know what they have unless they are in emergency conditions. And lastly, we do have some recommendations for the U.S. government. Start with the two, mention those really quick. To the U.S. Congress, for the U.S. Congress to ensure that the final version of the Appropriation Act of fiscal year 2024 preserve the language on Burma found in the Senate Appropriation Bill for state foreign operations and related programs. In particular, the bill's accompanying report mentions assistance program, including in Thailand and India, and cross-border program, providing clear mandate to assist Chin refugees in Mizoram. Secondly, provide additional funding to UN agencies with a presence in Northeast India, if not Mizoram, with the goal of elevating regional public health outcomes. And to the Biden administrations, hold more conversations with the Indian central government to identify acceptable avenues for funding humanitarian assistance to Chin refugees, as well as the public health capacity building in the local Mizo community. Explore the possibility of funding humanitarian aid for refugees in Mizoram via non-governmental organization registers in both India and the United States. And lastly, provide financial support to the Chin diaspora organizations which are sending the majority of humanitarian funds, and to our international community. Please advocate for the Gavi Vaccine Alliance to begin working with doctors in Burma, resistance and civil disobedience movement. Other options include an increase of vaccine to the Indian government for use in Mizoram. Consult with local Mizo and Chin humanitarian actors as well as the Chin refugees community when developing plans for funds, aid deliveries, and facility expansions. And to the Chin diaspora, please work toward establishing a coordination mechanism in the Chin diaspora to prevent duplications of efforts and ensure equitable allocations of resources. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the report of your travels to Mizoram. I think that's very useful in terms of all the specifics that you were able to gather, data you were able to gather about the actual health situation and the needs that are there. Despite the Mizos being very welcoming, obviously the needs outweigh the resources that are available. So thank you so much for all your efforts. So give the panel another. Well, we do have a few minutes for questions and answers for those of you that might. Congressman Representative Smith is apparently still on his way. Questions?
there is also significant number of Chin population in Malaysia, where apparently Malaysia itself is not a signatory to the Refugee Convention. And we got a comprehensive overview, of course, in what is happening to our Chin brothers and sisters in India. But I think what would be good, rather a question, is a recommendation, since we are also engaging bilaterally with Malaysia as the national unity government. Would like to bring to the attention of our counterpart with the Malaysian related to the situations of the Chin in Malaysia related to the like social, economical, whatever. Like I don't think the situation there is as well that good. And from our end, we are also monitoring the situation, what is happening in terms of legality, access to public service, and getting a status. And in upcoming month as well, we are planning to visit to Malaysia, and perhaps if the opportunities allows, then we might in 2024 go to India or different ministries often visits there, but I think from the Ministry of Human Rights in partnership with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we might go to both places to see and adjust our policy and work toward to bring more support to Chin. Thank you so much.
Representative Chris Smith who has hosted this gathering. We are delighted to have him here. If you would like to come and make some few remarks, we would welcome you.
I'll be very brief because I missed most of it. I'm sorry about that. But I will catch up on everything that has been said. And I think the importance of this meeting is to get all of us to redouble our efforts to help the Chin, to again get Burma back on the focus list for Congress. I mean, we've had passed legislation in the past on the Rohingya, and we've done some good things, but the junta is not invincible. And that we're seeing that both on the military side as well as in the resistance, as well as on the moral suasion side. But we've got to do more as a Congress. I've had numerous hearings on Burma in the past. It's time for another one in our Human Rights Committee. So again, what you have been saying here, we will follow up with you. And that goes for many of those who have been displaced and are actual refugees, and in many cases are not being treated all that well, as we all know. So your presence here and hear from the experts, and I will get a complete readout later from my staff and perhaps from you. Any of your written remarks would be appreciated. So that we are guided by your insights and by your knowledge and expertise, because it's all about that. Without you, we fly somewhat blind. So I'm deeply appreciative. I do chair 3 committees. One's the China Commission, and there's been connections there, obviously, with Burma. I chair and that's the China executive. We have executive branch members on it as well, and senators. The Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission, and then the subcommittee on human rights, global health, and international organizations. So 3 different venues where we need to address this even more fully. So your leadership, all of you, will make it easier and more informed for us to act. So I thank you, and I will read the materials. Again, the beauty of this summit is that it gives us all the ability to recalibrate, rethink what we are doing or what we're not doing, and then to take it from there. So thank you so very, very much for your leadership. Stay for the rest of it.
Representative Smith, you have been a champion of religious freedom for years, so we applaud your presence and we applaud your solidarity in terms of trying to ameliorate both the situation in Myanmar but many other places around the world. So thank you. the representative from the National Unity Government was saying that they are reaching out to Malaysia to also try and be concerned about Chin refugees there. This panel has been young people who went to India, to Mizoram state, looking at the Chin refugees and the public health situation, because although the Mizos have been very welcoming, the 40,000 influx into that state in India has overloaded their ability to respond well. So you were there in June, is that right? June? October of last year. Okay. So that's, their report is here about the public health situation, and then this is a report about the persecution of Christians. Are there any other questions at this point? Oh, sure.
Thank you. I'd like to briefly respond to the Deputy Minister's very good point about Malaysia not being a signatory to the Refugee Convention either. That being said, that is no reason to exclude the possibility of UNHCR setting up in Mizoram. As I know, even if the response is not perfect in Malaysia, they do have a presence and they are registering refugees. So hopefully we would be able to see something similar in Mizoram State, India. Thank you.
Virginia, may I respond as well? Thank you. The Burma Advocacy Group of American Baptist Churches was in Malaysia in October, as I reported earlier. There are approximately 4,000 new refugees arriving every month in Malaysia. At the rate at which the UNHCR is registering people, those who are there, not those who are coming in addition, but those, it would take 20 years at the current rate for them to register all of the refugees in Malaysia. Much work needs to be done with UNHCR to increase the registration there. The main issue for many of the refugees there is that they cannot legally work. So they are subject to extortion by people who hire them under the table. There has been movement by the national government to allow legal work in certain areas, the dangerous and dirty jobs by and large. So more work needs to be done with the government of Malaysia in terms of the right to work and also access of the children to education. There is a large education effort that is underway by the Coalition of Burma Ethnics in Malaysia, COBUM, as we call it. We are working with them. They sponsor schools. Those are led by volunteers. But the children have no credit for their education through that system. And so much work needs to be done with the government of Malaysia, both through our State Department with whom we met and with UNHCR with whom we also met.
Thank you. Just to respond to that for 1 minute. We had interactions recently with Malaysian authorities related to the situations of Rohingya. In our next meeting, we are going to bring parallelly the situations of Chin together in terms of the dilemma that Malaysian government and the UNHCR has in handling those caseloads that they have, because apparently there is 150 to 200,000 Rohingya refugees there, and there is growing social cohesion problem within the society as well, and some misinformation, disinformations, not only related to the Rohingya, larger refugees from Burma, promoting hatred and disinformations and misinformation. So there's a huge amount of work that need to be done. And one thing I think would like to go back is that it is vital, I think, we look into developing emerging leadership, particularly girls, women, and civil society or community-based organizations within those refugees, so that they can shake the tree when it's come to the need to be interacting with the corrupt system or being abused or getting their rights. You don't need to be a member of refugee conventions to be they have signed the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So this very big guiding principle document should be, a state should be obliged to provide from a humanitarian ground all the necessary support to survive in those countries. So we will continue to work with the respective our counterpart in Malaysia and in the region as well. But apparently with India, I think our bad luck is that we are surrounded by not neighbors, those who will support the prosperity, peace and stability in Myanmar, more importantly the democracy. In that case, India was not to the level that we expected to be getting assistance, but I think the local government in Mizoram and other has been extending their hand to be supporting our brothers and sisters from China state who are crossing the borders. But we will continue to find innovative ways to engage with Indian authorities as well to ensure that within our capacity that we can do. I mean, we don't have a lot of resource and we operate in a very difficult circumstance with limited resource, but we'll continue to work in that. Thank you so much.
Excuse me, I'm with BOA. My name is Yang. If the conference, sir, if you can share with the latest development about the Burma Act and then especially non-limited assistance towards Burma. If you can share the latest development. Thank you.
Respectfully, I would argue we're not doing enough. Pardon me, especially when it comes to aiding the refugees. Getting anything into the country itself obviously is vexing and filled with problems. We do provide money through the UNHCR, but I'm always aware that they have seemingly countless issues that they have to deal with, and we could be doing more. The reason why I wanted to be here is to get additional input as to what we can be doing and what we're not doing. But aid for refugees is so basic. And there's always the diplomacy we could be doing, you know, the idea that one can't work when you're a refugee. It's one thing if you're an economic migrant, arguably, you know, it's a little bit more difficult to say they should be allowed to work if they're coming in illegally or something. But here we're talking about people with a well-founded fear of persecution that is so demonstrable, it's beyond any question. So they should be getting, I believe, that ability, whether any country is a signer of the Refugee Convention or not. And you know, sometimes that means very little. China has signed on to the Refugee Convention, and you know, they do not ever live up to their legal obligations. So we need to do more. And again, picking up information. You know, the beauty of a meeting like this with so many experts and people who have been there as recently as October, just underscores the need to refocus. That's why we're doing this, and that's and I'm looking forward to working with the USCCB, working with other NGOs in that regard. I do plan on doing a hearing, which is again why I wanted to hear what's going on here. I was asked to get the room, and that's easy, but it's more importantly to get the information and the insights to know what our next step should be, and we will do it. I had my first hearing on Burma back in 2010. You know, many of us obviously have for years raised the issues of Aung San Suu Kyi and all the concerns, and then there was some disappointment, as we all know there, but obviously it was an elected government, and of course now that the junta is back as of 2021, that was a horrible, horrible turn of events, and it has to be met with rigorous diplomacy and humanitarian aid.
Thank you, sir.
So a dollar sign or anything like that, I don't have it. But we need to, that's why I wanted to get all this information. My staff has been here collecting it throughout this whole meeting, and we will follow up. Everything I've found, I've been in Congress 44 years, the key is always in the follow-up. What do we learn that's new? What do we need to sustain? But above all, because sustaining is easy, it's finding out what new things we can do, and I think this panel helps all of us today.
So let's thank this second panel, and then we'll invite Zoe to do some concluding remarks. So let's.
Thank you, Honorable Representatives, for hosting this meeting. With the resistance in Burma winning many successes in the past few months, including in northern part of Burma, in the south and in the western part, it is especially timely now. Now we must elevate pressure on the military regime. We urge Congress to adopt a resolution condemning atrocities against Christian minority in Burma and urging the military to stop the violence immediately. We seek the immediate release of Reverend Dr. Kalam Samson, Ms. Biak Moisung, and all other imprisoned religious leaders. We also seek the immediate release of State Councilor Aung San Suu Kyi, President Wu Min, and all other political prisoners. We urge the Biden administration to determine that the atrocities against Christians in Burma constitute war crimes and crimes against humanity. Thank you, Mr. Representative. Thank you. Thank you all of you.
So this concludes our briefing this afternoon. We appreciate so many of you who have been supporters, sponsors, co-hosts, as well as those of you who are just interested and want to raise the profile of Burma, Myanmar, not only within the Congress, but within the administration and within the international community to pay more attention, to provide more support for the many people who are suffering, both within Burma as well as in surrounding countries. So thank you all for coming, and we will stay tuned for the next hearing that Representative Smith may be hosting. So thank you so much.